we are looking at the issues of social protection of informal sector workers. So the work of ITF has more to do with addressing labor issues of transport workers, mainly the informal transport workers. And I think this is where it really links with our work as IDS, because when we think about the issues of social protection of informal transport workers, at the end of the day, it also touches on labor issues, that if these persons are not well paid, if their payments are irregular, if their payments are not constant, if they're not assured of an income, they also cannot be assured of their social protection.
We've been working with ITF affiliates the last few years, particularly in Nairobi, where bus rapid transit, BRT, is being introduced. And it is possible that this will lead to a really amazing, environmentally friendly, congestion-free, formal form of employment for workers. On the other hand, there's also the danger that thousands of such the workers in the informal industry, they could be easily losing many jobs with the introduction of BRT. So the essential part of the public transport campaign is to enable our affiliates, the ITF affiliates, to be able to be included in the planning of public transport in Nairobi.
For PSI, this work is part of our anti-privatization campaigns and our work within our local and regional government sector. PSI fully supports the work that IATF is doing, building strong unions and developing an alternative model of public transport based on public ownership, public investment, secure jobs and rights for public transport workers. Quality public services are the foundation of democratic societies and successful economies.
We also work with governments, unions and employers, and sometimes social movements or others, to get dialogue with the goal of concrete plans on just transition. And by concrete, that could be a collective bargaining agreement, could be a political commitment, it could be some new policies, or it could be something completely different that's more movement-based. We're very happy to be working now with ITF because a big part of our work is with cities.
The ITF's campaign for public transportation has been extremely influential in developing the work of a project that I coordinate called Trade Unions for Energy Democracy. That project consists of 62 union bodies, including 4 global union federations. ITF was the first one to join. Through its Climate Change Committee, which was a global body, identified public transport as a crucially important dimension in the fight against greenhouse gas emissions that are warming the atmosphere and oceans and causing climate instability. And working alongside the ITF, Unions for Energy Democracy continues to advocate for the need for a dramatic scale-up of public transport.
ITF's work on supporting labor unions in the transport sector and bringing labor more fundamentally into our conversations about policy and planning is so important. And it fits in beautifully with the kind of work I do here at the Center for Sustainable Urban Development at Columbia University in New York. I've been working in Nairobi and a number of African cities on improving public transport, and it has become abundantly clear that without addressing the terrible labor conditions in the transport sector in these cities, we will make very little progress on addressing many of the critical problems of public transport in these cities.
The ITSC is totally committed to work with the ITF on the question of urban transit. If you think about our cities, the predictions are 6 billion people living in urban settlements. We first of all have massive inequality, 1 in 6 people already today living in urban slums. So the infrastructure is critical. We then have the climate challenge, which means that you cannot have the cars, the pollution, the fossil fuel-based transport that we have today. The answer in part is in fact urban transit systems that are for everybody, that are efficient, they're clean, They're actually places where people can feel safe.
We're a campaign for public ownership here in the UK, and we're working with the ITF to think about public ownership of public transport across the world. So we're doing a piece of work looking at why people care about public transport, what it means for communities, why it's important to people. We're looking at different models of public ownership, and then we're looking at campaign strategies. So across the world, how have communities, unions, passengers been able to work together to bring services out of privatisation and into public hands?